doing truck work in the back.
Yeah, good. That's excellent. Thank you. Hey guys, hello everyone. We're live. Woo! You're sticking with a nice Riesling tonight, Karen. That's okay. And it's funny because you should be seeing me and Peter, but Peter's right behind my head. So if I do this, there he is doing his prep. Hi, Peter. He's been working very hard in the winery all day. Hello, Karen. Hello, Kay. Kangaroo Island, you have reasonable Wi-Fi. Good. I got the wine before the email okay. Oh, Pinot Grigio, not a bad idea, Kay. Well done. Hello, John and Cody. Rockford Eden Valley Riesling. Excellent. David's also got, I don't know if we've got any cocktail makers. Oh, good. Emily's making some cocktails. David, what Riesling have you got? I'll be very interested to know. And there is a reason that I've paired this cocktail with Riesling, and of course it's that lemony, citrusy character. So I figured that some of you like to play with cocktails, some of you prefer to have a glass of wine. We want to cater to all tastes when we're not drinking Moorooduc Estate, when we're having a little break. So yes, and also I thought it was a wonderful opportunity. David Temmers by Tractor Estate Riesling. Ooh, I have not tasted their Riesling yet, so I'll be very interested to hear how it tastes. I've got Peter. So Peter is just getting his prep going. Yeah, I've moved to the side, Peter, so they can see your back, so that you're getting all organised. He's got all the ingredients up there on the mantelpiece. So that's his bar for the night. He's already made a practice Aviation for Millie, who's our other vintage helper this year, and she's over enjoying it in the sunshine. Hang on. Hang on, Millie. You can't get away from them. Here they are. Wave, Millie, wave. They'll just see a silhouette of you and the beautiful sun behind you. What a gorgeous day. Hello, Fiona. How are you? Lovely to see you. Craig got an Alsace Riesling from my contacts. Excellent. Peter and Karen Napstein 2012 handpicked Riesling. How fantastic. Karen, are you and Joan work widows again tonight, or is Craig with you as well? He's very busy this year, isn't he? It's just not right. So, sip of water. So as Peter is making these cocktails for us, I think we'll start with a cocktail introduction. I'll move on to Rieslings, but I think does that sound like a good idea, Peter? Are you ready to make me a cocktail?
That sounds great. I think you need a drink in your hands. So yes.
I think I do, absolutely. So the cocktail that Peter is making tonight is the Aviation, and he's done a little bit of research for us, as have I, and the recipe that I've been making the Aviation from is from the Difford's Guide. So that's the one that he's going to make for me now. Hello, Peter McIntyre, Peter 2.0, yes, indeed. The other Peter who works here at Moorooduc, who is not my brother. So the Difford's Guide says that an Aviation should be heavy on the gin. Joan and you are starting the party. Craig's on his way home from the airport, partying, working in Melbourne. Does he do anything other than party in Melbourne or Sydney? Okay, that sounds good. Excellent. Save him a little bit of wine, Karen. So the Difford's Guide says heavy on the gin. So the recipe goes thusly. That's a terrible sentence. Jeremy's actually off at a picnic in the park, drinking these out of little bottles. So this is a much better, more civilized way to do it. So 2 shots of gin go into the cocktail maker, which has got some ice in it. Half a shot of lemon, and I've just realized that I should go slowly so that Peter's got time to put the 2 shots of gin in there.
I know it by heart.
You know it by heart? Okay, so half a shot of lemon juice, which has been freshly squeezed. I squeezed it this afternoon from our lemon tree. And then the Difford's Guide says 1/4 of a shot each of maraschino liqueur and of creme de violette. And the creme de violette is very purple. The creme de violette does 2 things. It gives the cocktail a slightly floral character, but it also makes it look like the color of the sky. It makes it go sky blue. So it's pretty awesome. Jeff's just asked, hello, Paul. Paul and Roz say hi, but they couldn't make it. Oh, that's a shame. Hello, Paul and Roz, anyway, if you are watching later on. Sue and Jeff, hello. You've been on a Where's Wally hunt, had to settle for blue curacao. Well, blue curacao will give it an orangey flavour, but it will also make it blue, but it'll be a different colour blue from my drink. Shell, struggling after a busy day. Probably missed it, but what glass do you recommend for the Aviation? Seriously, you can put it in any glass you like, but Peter is putting mine in a coupe. He's giving it. See, this is so much better than me making it, isn't it? Because I can talk to you. I've got my barman in the background shaking up a beautiful cocktail for me. Any sort of, you can put in a wine glass shell if that's what you have at hand. Millie's having hers in a beautiful pink Lalique wine glass that we bought for my grandmother that I can't drink wine out of because it's pink, but it's great for cocktails. Hello, Anne. How are you going? Lovely to see you. 2015 Tapanapa Eden Valley Riesling with Flammenkuchen. That sounds fantastic. So, Shell, I'm putting mine into my little glasses that I use for martinis and margaritas and all things that are sort of slightly flat and saucer shaped. You'll see it's going to come over here in just a moment. What Peter has to do now is garnish it, and you have a choice of either a lemon twist garnish. I can't speak tonight. I obviously need a little sip of my cocktail. A lemon twist as a garnish, or a maraschino cherry, and I have a feeling he might be doing one of each for me. Is that right, Peter? Is that right, Peter? You're going to do both for me? It's a surprise! Yay! I love surprises. I hope it gives me a cherry. So while I wait for my beautiful drink, which is going to come over in a minute, hopefully it won't be quite as purple as my glasses. It should be the colour of a sky blue sky, which we'll see in a moment. And once Peter's made my cocktail, he's going to make one for himself, and he's going to use the original recipe that he's looked up, which has got more lemon juice. It's got twice as much lemon juice as mine. Mine's got half a shot of lemon juice, and his recipe, his first recipe said to put a whole shot of lemon juice in, and then it's got a couple of drops of the maraschino liqueur and a couple of drops of the creme de violette. So it'll probably be a much more restrained, slightly more sour, less sweet version of the cocktail, which might appeal more to some people. I'm hoping that mine's not too sweet, but the maraschino liqueur is quite sweet, and the creme de violette also is quite sweet. So you're using the maraschino liqueur particularly. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Council. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Oh, so beautiful. Look, everyone, look at that. Thank you, Peter. That looks amazing. See, I got one of each. How beautiful is that? A little lemon twist. I can't do lemon twist, so I'm hoping that Peter might be able to teach me his secrets. And a cherry, and it's a perfect colour. It's quite purpley. It's got a little bit of yellow to it from the lemon juice. I have to taste it. Excuse me. Oh, yum. So, sorry, I just kicked the it is like a grey blue sky. It's a little bit like outside. The clouds are a little bit grey blue. That's delicious. I can really taste the violet. And I think that the one that he's going to be making himself now will be less violety and a bit more lemony. So if you find kind of floral flavors and sweet characters in cocktails a little bit overwhelming, just pull back on the maraschino liqueur, pull back on the creme de violette, put a little bit more lemon juice in it. You can play around with the recipe until you find the perfect balance for you. And I think that's the most important thing. It is amazing, Cotty. I'm very excited to have this little drink to sip on. And amazingly, and you guys are going to think I'm crazy and have been drinking Aviations all afternoon, but there's a real, I'm getting really spoiled, aren't I, Karen? It's very nice. It's very nice having help, you know. And these poor guys, they've been working so hard today. They were out in the rain. We had to find them raincoats. They were already wet. So above and beyond to come to my cocktail lounge this afternoon and make me cocktails. How good is that? Aviation was code for rocket fuel. In a way, Kay, all cocktails basically rocket fuel. The origin of the cocktail was pretty cheap nasty spirits, and we're talking about sort of prohibition times particularly, but also before that, when people were drinking the cheapest version of spirits, then you needed to mix them with things to make them more palatable. And the things that traditionally they were mixed with was citrus juice and sugar and water, usually in the form of ice. So the ice will cool it down, and as you know, if you drink your wine too cold, then you can't taste the alcohol as much. And you can't taste any sort of obvious characters in wine. So if you're drinking cheaper wine, you want to serve it a bit colder as well. And a lot of cheap wine has a little bit of sugar in it, particularly Riesling. A cocktail, and if you think about any type of cocktail that's a basic cocktail, so spirit heavy, it'll be a classic mix of the spirit plus sugar plus water, and usually a bit of citrus to kind of make it a bit more zingy. And that's exactly what this is. So this cocktail originated in, when was it, Peter?
1916.
1916. And they were drinking cocktails with a bit of sugar, a bit of ice, bit of zing from the juice in it to make the liquor go down more easily, to make it taste better. And that's the magic, the alchemy of the cocktail, you know. These days, obviously, we use high quality produce. We've got the Balcombe gin, which is a favourite. We've used it before. Life is not meant for cheap wine, Karen. That's true, and you have been spoiled. But I keep knocking the table and the camera. I'm sorry, I'm a bit clumsy today. The Mary Poppins method. Exactly, Fiona. A little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down. And that is a very sophisticated version of a way to make gin on its own taste better. And back in the day, they didn't have tonic water. It wasn't easy to get. You couldn't go and buy fizzy drinks to mix with your liquor. So the sugar and the ice and the juice, if you could get the juice, and if you didn't have lemon juice or orange juice or whatever, you just went with sugar and ice and the whiskey or gin or vodka or whatever it was that you were drinking, and that was how it made the booze taste better. Cocktails didn't exist before then. Now, Cotty, I don't have my my full cocktail history knowledge going, but a lot of cocktails were really invented during that time. Come and show us your more ancient style of aviation.
Well, they look very similar.
They do look very similar. Cheers. Thank you. The 1916 Aviation would have been very new, and I don't even know if it would have had creme de violette in it in 1916. Did they have that?
But just 2 dashes.
Just 2 dashes.
Yes.
2 dashes of creme de violette, 2 dashes of maraschino liqueur, and the rest is gin and lemon juice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to try it?
I would love to try it if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll try it out of the other side. You'll know that where I've sipped it from because my lipstick will be. Oh, yum. See, that's much more lemony. It's probably almost a little bit too lemony for me. I think it's really delicious, though. I think for me, one of these days, it'll be halfway between mine and yours. It would probably be my perfect Aviation. But I think that's really interesting because they obviously the same drink, but different versions. Thank you very much, Peter. That's awesome. So Peter's just going to hang out there and make a couple more for Jill and Richard, and then he can sit down and relax. Or you're very welcome to sit down and relax with your drink until they come back, and then you can pop up and make some more for them when they get back. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Peter's worked in restaurants and made cocktails for a living in America before he got into winemaking in New Zealand as well. So I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to make use of some of his many skills that weren't about washing barrels and pumping wine. Okay. Oh gosh, everyone's saying. Oh, okay, here we go. Alison, you started with martinis. Excellent, Alison. I think, and a martini, perfect example. A martini doesn't have sugar in it, but the vermouth gives it that softens the gin and makes your older fashioned style of martini was more vermouth heavy than a modern martini. So a modern martini usually has a very small amount of vermouth, but back in the 1910s, 19 teens, it would have had, and up until sort of Mad Men time, would have been about a third vermouth to 2/3 gin. So that's a similar sort of a thing. Very good. Emily didn't have time to get Aviation ingredients, so you made up your own cocktail: gin, fresh grapefruit and orange juice, and a splash of lemonade for sweetness. Run out of agave. That's appalling that you don't have any agave at home, Emily. Kevin would be horrified, but it sounds like a delicious cocktail, and the same kind of principle. So you've got your booze in the gin, and then the grapefruit and orange juice give you the fruitiness, and your lemonade gives you your sweetness. So perfect. Sounds awesome. Hello, Craig. I think I said hello, all right. Oh, Polly's back. The dogs are back. Jill and Richard are back. Peter's back up making cocktails for mum and dad. So isn't he good? Shell, picking up grape flavored candy, the way grapes in Japan actually taste, if you've ever had them. Yeah, like grape flavored grapes. Shell, have you made yourself an Aviation, haven't you? Did you find an appropriate glass to put it in? You must send me a photo of your Aviation as well, because I think that would be really fun. It has, so yeah, it's got that kind of grape candy or grape bubblegum kind of a flavour with parfait d'amour. Oh, fantastic. So yeah, the floral creme de violette or whatever you've used instead does give it a real kind of candy kind of flavour thing. And in America, they have those. So you know how grape bubblegum tastes? In America, they have these grapes that are called Concord, and they taste exactly like grape bubblegum. And I always thought grape bubblegum was like a fake grape flavour, but it's actually based on Concord grapes, which we don't see in Australia very often. And are you making some vermouth? How awesome. That's very cool. Yes, you will have to let us know how it works out. We might have to have a bit of a vermouth tasting. The Japanese ones too, I think, Shell, absolutely, that you get the same flavour from that lolly grape kind of flavour. It's I think it's those Concord grapes, which I think is pretty cool. Yes, someone said something about Flammkuchen being Alsatian pizza, and that's absolutely right. It's like a base. It's a thin base with it's got cheese and smoked meat on it usually. So it's pretty delicious and really good if you're having a Riesling. So as I said, matching this cocktail to Riesling, you're getting that sort of grapey, floral kind of a note. There's a very beautiful lemon base. The gin is giving it those lovely kind of spicy herbal floral notes as well. And for those of you who, I got to get out of the way, it's such a good action, the old shaking action. That's good. I've got a bar in my TV show now. It's awesome. Jill and Richard are back, and they've sat down at their bar table over there, ready for their cocktail. So it's all good. It's all happening. Hello, Oscar. The dogs are back as well. Blue Curacao passes the test, Jeff and Sue. That's great. Glad to hear it. We'll have to do a little play. Alison, I have so many beautiful ruby grapefruit at the moment. They do work very well with the gin, absolutely. I think ruby grapefruit is one of those beautiful fruits that we kind of forget about. And if you like Campari and orange, then Campari and ruby grapefruit juice is amazing as well. You just do a third Campari and 2/3 of the fruit juice, freshly squeezed, and lots of ice, and it's absolutely delicious. Very, very good. What are you saying, Shell, now? Oh, my goodness. Smells like vanilla fresh fridge cleaner. I do not understand that reference. I don't have vanilla fresh fridge cleaner. Hello, Hannah, Zach, and Jack. Clare Valley Riesling here. Okay, well, while Richard and Jill are waiting for their cocktail, The Alsace Riesling is really rich and textural. Absolutely. So let's talk about Riesling, because most of you are drinking Riesling. And I really think that Campari and Orange Fiona, and if you can get blood oranges and juice them, even better. Absolutely delicious. Okay, away from the cocktails, onto the Riesling. Hello, Polly. How are you? Polly's back. She's trying to tell me things. She's very puffed, so I think she's been running a lot. I think maybe she ran away under the nets and chased the birds. Did you? Yep, got it. Hang on. Polly, say hi to everyone. There we go. Good girl. Yeah, all right, that's enough of that. That's enough dog stuff. Right, Riesling. When I'm drinking Riesling, I like to drink it in one of those shaped glasses. You can get a specific Riesling glass from Riedel, but I think these are sometimes called Riesling glasses. They're sometimes called Sangiovese glass. I just see them. Oh, I'll just put my grotty fingers all over that one. But anyway, I just see them as a really nice shaped glass for a Riesling. You could also serve an Aviation in one of those if you didn't have that shaped glass. Cocktails don't really mind what shaped glass they're in. It's more for how they look, and they do look very pretty in these little saucers. Right, so Craig and his team are drinking Alsace Riesling, and that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about, the differences in style of different Rieslings, because for me, Riesling is an aromatic grape variety, so it's got a lot in contact already with this very aromatic cocktail. It's an aromatic grape variety that has aromas of citrus fruit, usually lemon and lime. Sometimes when it's really ripe, and the riper styles of Riesling come from places like Alsace, you can sometimes get a slight tangerine or kumquat kind of a note coming into the Riesling. But when they get really ripe, they start getting sort of almost tropical fruit characters as well as the citrus, which is really lovely. And you get that rich and textural character that Craig's talking about with his. Now, I've got a few out for show and tell. I'm not going to open them all because I think once I've had my Aviation, I'll probably be all right for a little while alcohol-wise. Kay bought a bottle of Kangaroo Island Mulberry Gin. Oh, with Cappy Blood Orange, that would be delicious. So I have a little Grand Cru Riesling here that I've brought for show and tell because I love this wine. I haven't tasted this vintage yet. We bought it just recently from the guys who sell our wine in Melbourne. They're called Vintage and Vine. And they import the Kinsler Rieslings from Alsace. They're in Ribeauvillé. And if you ever get a chance to go to Alsace, you must go to Ribeauvillé. It's absolutely gorgeous. It looks like it's all made of gingerbread. It's one of those really sweet little villages that you go to. Peter's going back to the cocktails. Peter, I'm talking about Riesling now. Peter's pre-made cocktail isn't the right colour. Was I supposed to add something other than lemon juice? No, but perhaps, Pete, I didn't put enough creme de violette in. You might have a more subtle version of what we've made tonight. Sorry. I made Peter some. Sorry, Richard. Oh yeah, it's probably because you're at higher altitude. Richard says in North Fitzroy. Don't know what's happening now. It's all getting very silly. Let me put this cocktail over here so I don't knock it over. I love the Kinsler lines because they're delicious, but also how cool is that label? They've got little gargoyles on the label. But this is an Alsace Grand Cru. So Alsace, as I say, beautiful place to visit. It's quite tricky to get to from Paris. It doesn't look very far on the map, but it's quite twisty, turny roads to get there. So give yourself time. Oh, Jill and Richard look very happy now. They've got their beautiful cocktails that Peter's created for them. Everyone's happy. And this is from the Kirchberg Grand Cru vineyard. So that's why it says Kirchberg on it. Hello, Penny. You've missed the cocktails. That's all right. I'm that far down on my cocktail, and we're on to the Rieslings now. But we'll come back to the cocktails. Don't worry. So the Kirchberg de Ribeauvillé, Alsace Grand Cru. Alsace appellation is really easy. It's either Grand Cru or it's not. So Riesling Grand Cru tends to be a bit richer, a bit riper. The problem with Alsace Riesling in general is that you never quite know if it's going to be bone dry or if it's going to be a little bit sweet, or if it's going to have quite a lot of residual sugar. So one way you can check is have a look at the alcohol. This is 13.5% alcohol in it from a Grand Cru vineyard from a decent year. It makes me wonder whether there might be just a little bit of sugar in there, because often you can get from a Grand Cru vineyard in Alsace, you can get dry wines that have about 14% alcohol from Riesling, which is unusual in other parts of the world sometimes. Are you all right there, Jill? And Richard, you're having a little... Oh, Richard spilled his on himself. He's not used to the shaped glasses. That's a shame. Fiona, I'm also not a fan of residual sugar in Riesling, unless that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for a Riesling with a bit of residual sugar, fantastic. But it's nice to know before you open the bottle and taste it. So this one, I would be slightly... I'd be cautious about opening it in mixed company without checking it to make sure that it's not a little bit sweet. But I think this will be a beautiful wine when we get to taste it. Not tonight, another night. The dry muscat from Alsace are also lovely. That's absolutely, and they make sparkling Riesling as well, which is also delicious. Very floral, very delicious. Now in Australia, Australia is one of the biggest producers of Riesling in the world. And we grow a lot of Riesling in South Australia, in the Eden Valley and the Clare Valley. And so I'm not surprised that we've got some Eden or Clare Valley Riesling. Peter and Karen, I was saying 13.5, it might be dry, but it could be, they could, in a good year, they could get that up to 14% as a dry wine for alcohol. And if it was an Alsace Riesling that was 12.5%, for example, or 12%, then you'd be very suspicious that there might be some residual sugar in there. Australian Rieslings generally, traditional Australian Rieslings are pretty dry. Yeah, I agree, Fiona. Well, Fiona, sometimes, and we'll get to where a little bit of sweetness in Riesling works really, really well. But I agree, if you want a sweet wine, then you want to go with a dedicated sticky wine. An off-dry style of Riesling is the least popular style of Riesling in Australia, and I think it's partly because we've got a bit of throwback from the 70s and early 80s when a lot of cheap Riesling in cask had some sugar in it to make it a bit fruitier. We think about those fruity Lexia kind of styles of wines, which weren't usually straight. The fruity Lexia would usually have a bit of Riesling in it, but not be straight Riesling, have some other things too. Blue Nun, absolutely. But so Blue Nun, that's a very good way to get me to where sweet Riesling can be really delicious. And I'm talking about Mosel Riesling and German Riesling more broadly. Blue Nun and Black Tower, very off-putting. Those wines were cheap, they were nasty, they were made for the mass market. If you now go to the Mosel and you buy a traditional Cabernet wine from someone, say like Dr. Lewison, his traditional Cabernet Mosel wine will have probably about 8 to 10% alcohol and will have maybe 30 grams per litre of sugar in it. It will have such high acidity, though, it will not taste particularly sweet. Sugar and acid will cancel each other out up to a certain point. So don't be completely closed off to Riesling with a little bit of residual sugar. I think it can be beautiful, but it has to be in a high-end wine. Also, and Zach and Jack, I will come back to your question in just a moment. The other thing that's really interesting is that with global warming and with the very warm summers that they've been having in the Mosel in recent years, there's a lot more scope for getting Riesling riper and getting more richness and fruit to the wine. So dry Riesling from the Mosel is more successful today than it's ever been before. In the past, about 10 years ago, they started trying to make dry Riesling in the Mosel, and it was thin and it was really sharp because it was very high acid. It didn't have a lot of fruit development. It really needed a little bit of sugar to kind of carry the acid, which would be lovely. But these days, I think the off-dry styles, the traditional off-dry styles from great producers are amazing. And it's a nice way to have a little bit less alcohol in your wine. You know, if you want a slightly lower alcohol wine, so that you can have a couple of glasses before you have to drive home. Cabernet Riesling with 8.5% alcohol in it. It's not a bad way to go. Canberra also has some nice off-dry Rieslings, Craig has pointed out, and that's right. In Australia, we went away from sweet Riesling for a really long time, or Riesling with any residual sugar in it for a really long time, because of Blue Nun, because of Black Tower, because of all the nasty kind of sweet, cheap wines that were made. And there's a style of wine from Germany called Liebfraumilch, which has got a terrible reputation these days. It's become the cheapest of the cheap. If anyone spent any time in the UK in the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s, Liebfraumilch was the cheapest wine that you could buy. I worked at a boarding school, and the teachers would buy Liebfraumilch because it was the cheapest wine from the bottle shop. These days it's pretty commercial and pretty dreadful, but originally Liebfraumilch was actually quite delicious wine made by nuns in a very specific part of Germany, and it just got kind of bastardized by trying to go out to the mass market, which was really sad. So blah, blah, blah. Lots of questions. Zach and Jack, back up the truck, sparkling Riesling. So in Germany, they have a style of wine called Sekt, which is sparkling wine. It's not champagne. It's not even trying to be champagne. They make it in a different way, but the better versions of Sekt from Germany, it's spelled S-E-K-T. And the best ones are Deutsche Sekt, which means that the grapes have been grown in Germany and made into sparkling wine in Germany. And the best ones, most of the best ones are made from Riesling. So yes, you can get sparkling Riesling. It's made using a different method from the method making champagne that we don't have time to get into tonight, but it's very interesting and you should look out. There is a Dr. Lurzen Deutsche Sekt Riesling out in the marketplace. I know you can get it from the Prince Wine Store. I think you can probably get it from Dan Murphy's if they're, one of their kind of better stores. Keep an eye out for it. It's pretty delicious. We had it recently at a sparkling wine masterclass that I did for some WSET students. There's so many comments. So if I've missed your comment, please, or if it's a question, make it again. Penny Broom, is Eden Valley Riesling acceptable? Absolutely, Eden Valley Riesling is acceptable. I might have mentioned it, Penny, just before you joined us. Most of the Riesling that we know in Australia is either Eden Valley or Clare Valley Riesling, because that's the most famous region in Australia for sorry, I'm just reading people's comments and I'm losing my train of thought. Eden Valley and Clare Valley are probably the most famous for dry Australian modern Rieslings, and they're good value for money generally. There's a couple of very expensive ones out there, but most of them are pretty good value for money. They age incredibly well and they're delicious when they're young, and they're really lovely, kind of lemony, zesty, limey, dry, fairly kind of linear in their shape. Very, very interesting. Oh, hello, Yolanda. Lovely to see you. My pleasure. I've brought a couple of other Rieslings from other places that you should perhaps consider, and Craig mentioned it before around Canberra. And one of my favourite wines from Riesling from around Canberra is the Helm Riesling. This is a dry Riesling. It's their premium Riesling. We had it the other day with lunch. The team loved it. I enjoyed it very much. It's a beautiful wine. It's hard to find these days, and it's a little more expensive than some of the sort of entry-level Rieslings out there. But if you can find some Helm Riesling, it's absolutely beautiful. Ken's doing a brilliant job making beautiful wine. So that's one that I highly recommend. Tasmania is also a place that is growing and making incredible Rieslings. Unsurprisingly, because it's so cool and because we've got a rain shadow in half of Tasmania, you're getting Rieslings that are incredibly high acid. So it's starting to get a little bit closer in style to those German Rieslings I was talking about. And there are some people playing around with residual sugar in Riesling in Tasmania. Riesling Freak, I think, is one that you should look out for, and he makes a whole lot of different Rieslings with different levels of sugar, and they're pretty highly regarded amongst industry members. And the other weird thing about Riesling is that there's lots of people out there in the general public who still won't drink Riesling and who And Riesling has never been cool. Riesling has never been the next big thing. You know, we went Chardonnay in the 80s, then in the late 90s, early noughties, we went to Sauvignon Blanc, and then people were like, what's going to be the next big thing? Everyone in the wine industry kept saying, when's Riesling going to be the next big thing? It still hasn't been. I'm quite pleased with that because it makes it much better value for money. But it's a little bit forgotten by a lot of consumers out there. So if you're enjoying Riesling, drinking Riesling, buying Riesling on a regular basis, I think you're doing a really good job. How's who I can't remember who it was. Who's drinking the 10 Minutes by Tractor Riesling? How's it going? Because I haven't tasted it. I'll be very interested on a tasting note with that. It's their first release, and I don't actually think the Mornington Peninsula is the best place in the world to grow Riesling, but I reckon if 10 Minutes by Tractor are doing it, they're probably getting some pretty good fruit, so it should be pretty delicious. So I hope it is. Tasmania. So my from Bellwether, and you'll all be going, well, okay, yeah, David, the other very good Riesling from the Mornington Peninsula is the Paradigm Hill. And it's quite minerally, that wine, and it needs quite a lot of time, I think, to show at its best. I like the Paradigm Hill Riesling with sort of 8 to 10 years of age on it. So it's a wine that you need to have some patience with. But yes, absolutely. Thank you for pointing it out. Is it because Mornington Peninsula is... Oh, the 10X is the Paradigm Hill fruit. Of course it is. Stupid me. I did know that. I wasn't thinking. I'll have to get myself a bottle because I'll be very interested to try it. But as I was saying, Tasmania. This is not a classic Tasmanian brand because Bellwether is Coonawarra, but Sue Bell from Bellwether buys a parcel of Tasmanian Riesling fruit from Tasmania. I thought Tamar. I thought it was Tamar. Yeah, from Tamar. And it's definitely worth seeking out. Probably best just to buy it direct from her because she's very small. She's got an online shop, so easy to access. But this wine has been delicious in the past. This is the 2018. I'll be cracking that at some stage during vintage. So now the team knows to look out for when they get Riesling that they don't recognise. The other place that I was going to mention, and someone's already mentioned Western Australia, Mount Barker is a great place for Riesling, and we're seeing more and more beautiful Mount Barker Rieslings. This is from Forest Hill Vineyard. Again, I haven't tasted this wine yet, but I know that their wines are always fabulous. I'm looking forward to tasting this Mount Barker Block 2 Riesling 2021. We did a little swap with him because we were on a Chardonnay tasting for Wine Australia together. I do love the Forest Hill Chardonnay, so I know I'm going to enjoy this. And I'll be springing this on the team as well, probably during vintage. Shh, don't tell them. They're all busy drinking their cocktails, so they won't notice. It's not true. They're listening. They're listening very carefully to what I'm saying. It's all they're putting it all in their memory banks forever. Richard's got his hand up. Richard says that I must mention Crawford River, which I must because when we talk about Victoria, and we don't often talk about Riesling, but there's some beautiful Rieslings that come out of Victoria, and Crawford River is in the middle of nowhere. It's halfway. It's on the way to Adelaide, basically, and they make beautiful Cabernet, but probably my favourite wine from them is their Riesling. And you will find it around, those of you Melbourne-based, you'll find it around in better restaurants in their wine list. And a lot of people don't know who they are, so they don't order it. So it's always pretty good value. And the Crawford River wines are absolutely amazing. So, yes, absolutely look out for them. It's sort of Pyrenees area, but not quite. It's a bit outside of the classic wine regions, but yeah, you almost go past them when you're driving to Adelaide if you go the direct way to Adelaide. What conditions make Great Southern Region a good Riesling zone? That's a very good question, Craig. I think you also asked me before if I didn't really rate Mornington Peninsula Riesling because it's a bit cold, and I think it's more because we're a bit too maritime. And I don't have any scientific basis for this statement, but my gut feeling is that most good Rieslings come from slightly more continental climates, and being too close to the sea doesn't really work brilliantly for Riesling. I know most Australian wine regions are quite close to the sea, but I think the Mornington Peninsula being surrounded by water on three sides, I don't think we get the perfume, and I don't think we get the drive. I don't think it's because we're too cold, because Tasmania is colder than here, and they grow some really nice Rieslings there. I just think, apart from that Paradigm Hill fruit, it doesn't have a huge. The other Mornington Peninsula Rieslings that I've seen, which they've been fairly few and far between, just don't have the zest and the zing and the excitement that other Riesling regions have. Can't be good at everything everywhere. I think it's important to know that. My battery is starting to run low, and we're up to 40 minutes. So I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep answering your questions. But if I disappear, it's because my computer has run out of battery. So I'm just forewarning you on that. And also, before I get cut off by a low battery, don't forget, guys, that we're starting box 2 next week. And I'm going to resend. Some of you got the box without the letter.